Good morning. Welcome to the CUNA Advocacy Update. I'm Ryan Donovan, CUNA's Chief Advocacy Officer. It's July 20th, 2020. Here are three things that you need to know this week about credit union advocacy. First is that Congress returns to session, and there's a lot on its plate as it races towards the August recess. Credit union priorities are coming into focus as Congress turns its attention to the next round of COVID-related recovery legislation. And the pandemic-related regulatory pause is over. Deadlines for several proposed rules approach in coming weeks. This week, both the House and the Senate are in session. The House is going to consider H.R. 6395, the William M. Mack Thornberry National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. This is the bill that funds the Department of Defense for the upcoming fiscal year. The good news here is that an amendment to impose a national usury ceiling was not made in order for debate under this bill, and credit union advocacy successfully blocked banker attempts to add language opening up rent-free access to military bases to banks. Now that's still an issue in the Senate version of the legislation, and that'll need to be worked out in the conference committee, but a good step here in the House of Representatives. In addition, the House is going to vote on H.R. 7608, the State, Foreign Ops, Agriculture, Rural Development, Interior Environment, Military Construction, and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2021. This is the first minibus appropriations bill to be taken through the House of Representatives. And for credit unions, the legislation in the House is going to include funding for the Cooperative Development Program. That funding level is going to be at $17 million, which is the same level that we had requested. And of course, it's the same level that was appropriated for fiscal year 2020. The Senate's going to resume consideration of the nomination of Russell Voigt to be Director of the Office of Management and Budget. The Senate's also going to continue its consideration of S. 4049, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. And as I mentioned, that version of the language does include language that would allow banks rent-free access to military bases. One notable hearing this week, the Senate Banking Committee is going to hold a nomination hearing for Kyle Hopman of Maine to be a member of the National Credit Union Administration Board. This hearing will also include the nominations of two other nominees for the Securities and Exchange Commission. If confirmed, Mr. Hopman would be replacing board member Mark McWaters on the NCUA board. With Congress back in town, leaders in both chambers will begin hammering out the next round of recovery legislation. And as they do that, our priorities are coming into clear focus. We're urging Congress to extend the CARES Act credit union provisions, including troubled debt restructuring accommodations, expanded central liquidity facility authorities, and expanded share insurance coverage. We would also like to see language ensuring that the Community Development Financial Institution Fund and the Community Development Revolving Loan Fund receive additional appropriations to help credit unions serve their communities, as well as language that makes Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness easier for small businesses, and language that holds credit unions and other lenders harmless for errors and misrepresentations made by businesses that borrowed through the PPP. We have also supported efforts to include general COVID-19 liability protection for businesses, including credit unions that are open and serving consumers. And we've encouraged Congress to provide state and local governments with sufficient funding to mitigate COVID-19 costs. We expect this to be a big bill, and it's going to begin to take shape this week with the expectation that Congress will send something to the president before recessing for August. It's important to note that this could be the last recovery bill enacted before the election, so it's going to be important for credit unions to remain engaged in this process. Finally, I wanted to provide a look ahead to some of the regulatory deadlines we're facing. When COVID-19 first hit, many regulators hit the pause button on their regulatory agendas, and they focused on providing some rather immediate accommodations to their regulated entities. The pause, for all intents and purposes, is over, and now there's a backlog of regulatory proposals waiting to be acted on. As you can see here, we'll be commenting on several proposals over the next 2 months from NCUA, CFPB, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FinCEN, and other agencies. And we're going to be reaching out to credit unions to help us, as we always do, inform our comments. So please stay engaged with the CUNA communities, where we regularly ask for feedback on regulatory proposals. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have thoughts or questions about these proposals. And as always, you can find more information about these and other advocacy issues on the CUNA website at cuna.org. That is it for this week. Thank you for taking some time to join me for the advocacy update. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you won't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. Have a great week. Thanks.